Hi everyone. Today we're going to be looking at grid systems and responsive design. Now these are the modern approaches to building web pages. In the past we've looked at how to create a web page using just static containers and building our layout that way. But now we're going to look at something a bit more advanced, and one of the reasons we want to do this is because we want to have the option for what's called responsive design. Responsive design, we've all probably seen it by now, even though we might not have known the name. It's basically when the browser window changes, the website visuals and content reflow and repurpose themselves in size and shape so that the experience is somewhat pleasant on all the different devices. Now here we have a desktop. And it looks fantastic on my nice big monitor with big windows and everything, and I'm the king of infinite space here, so I don't care. It's great. However, if I were to imagine this website being viewed on a tablet, you'll notice what happens, that if I emulate the tablet by just clicking this, resizing this window to a narrower width, suddenly the website changes. And I'll do that again very slowly. There you go. We go from a horizontal menu there to here, where now we see the image fits right back in and the menu collapses and becomes a very different layout with different functionality. All the links are still there. However, they look very different and the behavior is very different also. Now that's achieved through what's called a media query, and we're going to be slowly looking at this in this entire tutorial series, starting from creating a very rudimentary grid system from scratch, which will allow us to resize our page and have it scale, and then slowly add media queries to accommodate a variety of different devices, mobile, tablets, etc., etc. We're going to look at how we can use this grid system to simplify our layout approach and to make building these web pages extremely easy compared to a static, rigid, fixed width container approach that might have been getting used up until recently. Now, of course, you'll need to have those foundational, you'll need to have that foundation of understanding the HTML, the CSS, having worked, with these static containers in order to A, understand what it is we're doing with the grid system, and B, appreciate it a little more because you'll see how much time you'll be saving with it and how many more options will be open to you. So without further delay, let's take a quick look and see what it's all about. So here's an example on this website here where we can see a website here. For example, this is the viewport. This is what a typical user would see, and you'll notice that there are vertical lines here. Now the reasoning behind this grid system is that you need to break your page down into sections, specifically columns. And these columns, rather than having a fixed width, are assigned a percentage value. So the width of these containers is dependent on the width of your browser window because they've been assigned a percentage. That way, whenever your window is resized, these containers here, and there's nothing special going on, these are just div containers that have been assigned a certain width, and they're all basically floating left so that they stack up horizontally against each other. And as you resize your window, you'll notice, there you go, there was a little trigger point there, but you'll notice that they scale, they go wider, narrower, depending on the width of the browser. And that's because they have a percentage assigned to them rather than a fixed width value. So that's step one, breaking down our page into columns. This particular one uses a 12-column grid system, and it's a very popular one because 12 allows us to divide our page into a variety of different sizes. We can do 1/3, we can do 1/2. 12 is a number that you can divide with quite a few different other numbers to get some nice round values. If we look further down, you can see that again in practice. As you scale down your design, if you imagine, you know, the purple area being the header, we got our little navigation bar here on the left, a little sidebar action here on the right, and your footer. It's a very typical standard layout for a typical web page. And as you can see, it adjusts accordingly depending on the width of the browser. That way, you'll always have something that looks half decent no matter what size screen or browser the user is viewing. And once it gets to a smaller size, we're assuming that the user has either a small display, could be a tablet, could be a mobile phone. You'll see that it triggers, and there it is. So on this particular page, you know, the sidebar on the left disappeared so that it can accommodate the content better. And as you scale this down to size, you can see that the layout remains intact. The columns are still there. It's just everything shrinks accordingly. And that's the basis for a grid system and having it scale, stretch, and squash depending on the situation. Now, what we're going to do is basically, in the steps ahead of us, use some HTML and CSS to build this foundation, and then we're going to see how we can use this pre-built approach to creating a layout that's very flexible and very easy to put together. Basically, you know, we're going to be looking at creating some CSS, some predetermined CSS over here, as you can see. We'll assign values to each of our columns by creating classes. We'll assign some special CSS over here, which is a bit more advanced than what we've seen up to date, but it's very powerful stuff and extremely fun to use. And then we're going to look at how we structure our document so that it takes advantage of this CSS work that we're doing and makes structuring a web page that can be very complex a much simpler task. And if you can do basic math and can divide, 12 into a number, then you shouldn't have any problem figuring out this method. So we're going to take this step by step. We're going to start from scratch, and we're just going to build it yourself, and we'll take it from there.